you're spending more time on social media or socializing or talking than you are actually delving into the training itself, then ask yourself, do you actually deserve that deload? Hi guys, it's Ben Xiong from Australian Strength Performance, and today we're going to be discussing about deloading. So what exactly is a deload? Now, one of the most common questions that I get is understanding a deload. When exactly is it best to apply a deload to your training, and whether you actually deserve a deload? So let's start with talking about deloading. What exactly is it? When we look at any sort of training, we look at training which is being split up into blocks. We call this periodization. Periodization is about ensuring that your training continues to progress by splitting up your training into distinctive blocks. Typically, the blocks will alternate between higher volume blocks as well as higher intensity blocks. So intensity refers to the load lifted. So if the volume is high, the amount of load lifted within that training block itself tends to be lower. If you're looking at a high load, that means the load is really heavy in a particular training block, let's say you're training for strength, then that overall volume tends to be less. So these two blocks tend to be alternated in the style of periodization we call undulating periodization. And in doing that, you allow your body to rest. In doing that, you also allow your body to progress over time. Now, typically, a deload is being applied into a block of training on the third out of the fourth week. So let's say, for example, I give you a block of training for strength for 4 weeks. During that 4 weeks, every single time you train, something has got to change in order for you to achieve progressive overload. That means typically you increase the weight. So typically on the third week, this is where something has to change in order for the body to recover, because as you progressively overload, you put a lot of strain on the muscular and the nervous system. So a deload can refer to a couple of things. One of them is dropping the volume of what you're doing. So instead of doing 6 sets, for example, you might do 4 sets or 3 sets to give your body a break based on the volume. Or it can be actually based on the load itself. That means you lighten the load. So instead of typically increasing that load from week to week, on the third week you lighten the load slightly to give your body a bit of a break on your nervous system, so much so that you can recover better for the fourth week, the last week of a block or a training block per se. When I give a deload, I typically like to focus on ensuring that the load is being kept while decreasing the volume. So if I were to give a deload to one of my athletes, for example, I would look at lowering the volume of what they're doing while maintaining the load. So keeping this strength, that is a very important component of what I'm focusing on most of the time. The thing about deloading is that when you come across this concept, a lot of people would jump the gun in assuming that in any training program that they are doing or pursuing, they will need to apply a deload to themselves. But here's the prerequisites of actually utilizing a deload week optimally. First and foremost, you need to be training consistently throughout the week. If you're the sort of person that comes into the gym that trains twice a week or 3 times a week, then you got to ask yourself, do you actually deserve that deload? Because every alternate day that you are not training, you are actively resting. Now, when we're talking about athletes, for example, that train 3 times in the week, and they also have games, apart from the gym sessions and team training and so forth, that could take out an extra 3 to 4 days of their time, these athletes definitely deserve a deload, because at the end of the day, it's the total amount of stress that they place on their body. But if you're the average Joe that trains in the gym and spends 3 days training and the rest of the days either at work or socializing or not doing much, then understand that a deload may not necessarily apply to you, because you're already getting that active recovery that you will between sessions. Now, secondly, the deload should also refer to the amount of intensity that you're putting in your sessions. If you're not training well, that means every session you go into the gym, you're spending more time on social media or socializing or talking than you are actually delving into the training itself, then ask yourself, do you actually deserve that deload? Because you're not training optimally, so your body will not be stressed out as it should be, from a muscular system standpoint and a nervous system standpoint, at the end of the day, you may not deserve that deload. And in taking that deload, you're giving yourself more breaks or more unnecessary rest than you actually deserve. This may backfire against the gains or the progress that you're looking to get out of it. So if you fall into one of these categories, understand that a deload may not apply to you. Now, people like to take this concept of deloading and apply it to their training irregardless. Typically, when you introduce a new program into your regime, let's say if I gave a client a training program of a block of 4 weeks, every third week tends to be the deload week that I spoke about earlier. So you do 2 weeks where you slowly increase your weights. On the third week, you deload. And then on the fourth week, you increase the weights again. And then by the fifth week, you change your program over because every block is 4 weeks. Now, whenever you put a new program in, typically you will find that the client would have a difficult time ascertaining the right weights that they should use. So the first program that you try often tends to be a program where you're dabbling in the weights. You are getting used to the rhythm of the movement itself. You're watching your tempo. You are understanding how to complete that program properly. In doing so, you are not actually pushing yourself or your body to your fullest potential. Now, this is the first program. So every first program that I introduce to a client, that for me is what I call a confidence builder. They utilize the opportunity to familiarize themselves with the program to build their confidence. Are their weights chosen accurate? Probably not. Are their rest times taken accurate? Probably not. Are the tempos utilized accurate? Probably not. But it allows them to understand the program and walk away from the program feeling that they're confident. And that's important because this builds the foundation for the next time they perform the program, and that's where they can increase the load and delve into exactly how they should perform the program. In saying so, the first time that they perform the program tends to be a confidence builder rather than the actual program itself. So for me, and for most of my clients, especially those doing body composition training, even bodybuilding training per se, the first program is a softer or lighter program. Hence, that to me already is a deload week for the client. As such, I do not specifically introduce a deload on the third week. I typically do a third week deload for my athletes whom I know that I can effectively ascertain the right weight from the start of the program, whom I know are training so consistently because they have to be methodically training in a specific way for athletic periodization. So in saying so, don't overanalyze a deload. It is a great concept to understand, but if you fall into a category which I've spoken about, where gym is an outlet for you, you go there to train, however, you are not 110% serious about your training, and you're not going into head first and pushing yourself every single session, you may not necessarily need a deload. Furthermore, if you're introducing a new program, hey, that in itself is the deload. Well, I hope this information is relevant to you and is helpful in understanding a deload and understanding whether you should incorporate a deload into your training sessions. But in any case, look to progress, look to get better, and train smart, not just hard.